Some of us are lucky. We were born with two loving parents, had a happy childhood, and can still gleefully sing the SpongeBob theme word for word. Others aren't so. Imagine growing up as an orphan. It's hard, isn't it? Thinking you aren't loved, wondering why you were abandoned, asking, why doesn't anyone want me? That's Tropicana Field, tucked away in St. Petersburg on the western coast of Florida. Today, we're going to hear the story of baseball's Orphan, the sad stadium nobody wants. And that's coming up right after this. In 1986, construction began on what would originally be known as the Florida Suncoast Dome, though no one saw the irony in the words sun and dome being in the same name. While their southern Florida counterparts would all play in open-air stadiums, a dome was to protect against humidity and frequent lightning storms that occurred during a baseball season. A roof in the nuclear-hot Florida sun makes sense, but what didn't make sense was why they were building a stadium at all. Since the 70s, the city of St. Petersburg and their residents had an odd fascination with attracting the MLB to the region. Keep this in mind. Tropicana Field was funded by taxpayers, being built without a team in place, and had no timetable for the league to expand. The field was initially built to attract a certain team, the Chicago White Sox. The White Sox had trouble replacing their own aging field, and the city of St. Petersburg was vying to pilfer the storied franchise away from Chicago's South Side. Those plans went awry when the city of Chicago built New Comiskey Park, meaning that once the Suncoast Dome was finished in 1990, their only hope was either luring a team like the San Francisco Giants or hoping the MLB would reward Tampa with a new expansion team. That didn't happen. Their neighbors to the south, Miami, were granted the Marlins in 1993, and a second expansion team was sent to Colorado, as it would be dumb to put two new teams in one state. Meanwhile, the Tampa Bay Storm of the Arena Football League and the Lightning of the NHL were the stadium's only regular tenants. That meant that this new stadium was empty the majority of the year. What was once the Florida Suncoast Dome became the Thunderdome, perhaps the coolest name in all of sports. It would eventually become Tropicana Field, of course. However, it wouldn't be for several years that Tampa was awarded a major league team. Yes, the dome that had been built to house a baseball team languished in agony for 12 years before they finally got one. In 1998, Western Florida was hungry for baseball. They had waited decades and were finally granted a team. The Marlins, in just their 5th year of existence, had won the World Series just a few months before the Devil Rays were to take the field for the first time. For many in the region, the new baseball team was a source of hope, somewhere for a family outing, but for others, it was a source of great resentment. Let's go back to the Trop's construction. While the Rays are nominally linked to Tampa, the field is in St. Petersburg, a good half-hour drive across the bay from Tampa proper, a far more populous area than where they actually broke ground. The 66 acres that the field occupies was sectioned off of what was called the gas plant district in Midtown St. Pete. The district was home to a large African-American population, the ancestors of whom had moved to the district back in the late 1800s to find jobs building Tampa Bay's infrastructure. When the stadium was approved and construction began, many of the district's residents were displaced and given little to no financial help to relocate. Individuals were crippled financially, as were black-owned small businesses. Suffice to say, the Rays hadn't even played a game, and they had already alienated a large potential fan base by the simple fact that they had forced them off of their land. At least they hadn't forced them off of their land and then used them as a mascot, like, well, you know. The field itself was on the former site of a coal gasification plant, which meant that construction was elongated when the city had to remove hazardous chemicals from the soil so that the team name didn't refer to the gamma rays that would end up turning players into workers from Chernobyl. And it's also rumored that there might be some unmarked graves under the field. So the outside had problems, but the inside of the dome was a little less than inspiring. Upon opening, the interior of the Trop was considered drab, a little more comparable to a warehouse or hospital than a Major League Baseball stadium. This was not a great cathedral like Fenway or Wrigley. This was a joyless, soulless AstroTurf environment where baseball was to be transacted 81 plus times a year. There are many quirks that give the field what one might call character. Starting from the top, the roof was built slanted, the idea being that less space would lower air conditioning costs. But the fixed roof at its bizarre angle is supported by a series of catwalks, which aren't quite as far from the ground as they need to be, and that becomes apparent from time to time. Because the dome slants lower to the ground as it reaches the outfield, balls hit in the air can have and will hit one of the 4 catwalks holding the dome up. Depending on which one the ball hits, there's a different outcome, and they've changed over the years. Here were the original rules in 1998 per the Washington Post. The ground rules state that any ball that hits a catwalk can be caught by a fielder on the rebound for an out. It's insane, by the way. A ball that hits a catwalk in foul territory is a foul ball. A ball that hits a catwalk in fair territory but caroms into foul territory is foul. A ball that hits a catwalk in fair territory and lands in fair territory is in play. Makes sense. A ball that gets stuck on a catwalk in fair territory is a double. Any ball that hits the lower catwalk hanging beyond the outfield fence is a home run. Like we said, there are 4 catwalks in total, and parts of all of them are in fair play. 2 of the catwalks are marked in yellow paint, signifying automatic dingers. However, some balls that look like sure homers have hit the B ring and been caught, which is just one of the many infuriating quirks of the park. Oddities like that, plus 2 bullpens in foul territory down the lines, give the Trop all the flaws you would expect an Orphan to have. The dome does have some redeeming qualities, like the touch tank where you and the kids can put your greasy hands on Florida's favorite aquatic life. But that's about it. The poor dome in a neighborhood that hates it, an inside flawed beyond repair, and a team somehow still loved by its fans. Who wouldn't want to play 81 games here? Well, the Rays, that's who. Believe it or not, there have been quite a few attempts to relocate the team to either a new stadium or even a new country. The most serious attempt to build a new home for the Rays came in 2018 when the proposed Ybor Stadium was drawn up. The stadium would have been built in Tampa rather than St. Pete, held about 31,000 and would have cost roughly $900 million, but the plans were canceled within a year when the city couldn't secure funding. Thus, the Rays were left to play out their lease that keeps them in the Trop until 2027. There is one more plan out there in the works, a plan that's never been done before in baseball. As of early 2020, the Rays, with the support of Major League Baseball, have created a plan to play half of their home games at their current venue in St. Pete and the other half in Montreal. I'm not making this up. The Rays are literally caught in a situation where their parents are divorcing and they have to spend time at Dad's house in Canada during the summer. The team would not split time in the 2 cities until 2028, and a time in which theoretically a new open-air stadium would be built in both Tampa and Montreal for the team to play its home games. I don't think this is a crazy idea, Commissioner Rob Manfred said about the 2-city concept. I think that it's a really legitimate effort to try and preserve baseball in Florida for the benefit of the Rays fans. And I do think there is some momentum to it. Hopefully they're negotiating in good faith. For fans of the Rays, there's no question that to have half of a team is better than none, but for baseball fans in Montreal, it's an entirely different question to settle for half when expansion to 32 could be on the horizon and the opportunity to host a non-shared team could be in the cards. Like with the Oakland Athletics, the Rays of the Joe Madden and Kevin Cash era have embraced small market baseball and driven innovation that spread throughout the game. New aggressive shifts, relief pitchers starting a game, data-driven roster moves, and a 96-win team with the lowest payroll in baseball, all of which took place in front of the stark backdrop of the Trop. A building that hosted a World Series in 2008, an unlikely appearance from an overmatched underdog that defied the odds just to get there. Unwanted, seemingly unloved, weird and born with flaws. Baseball's Orphan is still here, and when the lights are shut off for the last time, give the Trop a big ol' hug, because we all deserve a chance to be something special.
Just posted the final here. Baltimore defeating Boston 4-3.